Hi there, I'm Dave. The reason I'm creating this video is because we're getting ready to list your home, and I wanted to go through the high points of the process of getting from a listing to a sale. I would have previously sent you all these documents, and this is a quick way to review the important points. Here's a 7-point checklist for getting through the sale process. First is to sign a listing agreement. Next would be to go through your house with a checklist to make sure we have it ready for sale. Third would be to create a comparative market analysis or a CMA to make sure we've got it priced correctly. Fourth would be to take photos of the house. Then we put that whole package together, and in step 5, we submit this to the multiple listing service. And once it's listed, you might then decide step 6 to do some open houses, and then finally we get into escrow. So now let's do a quick summary of the timeline. I make no guarantee of these durations. They're strictly for illustrative purposes. But the first 4 steps, getting from the listing to repairing your house to creating a CMA and getting the photos taken, could take 2 weeks if you're in a hurry to 6 weeks if it takes longer, but let's say 2 to 4 weeks. The next step is to actually post the property to the MLS and then have a couple of open houses. This can take 4 weeks, maybe at the best, depending on what the current status of the market is. It could take a year. You never know. And then finally, you get into escrow, and whether you get cash or financing can depend on how long that will take to close the escrow and take title to the property. First thing on the checklist is the listing agreement. And in that agreement are many decision points that I want to go over briefly. And also there will be an owner's property disclosure in there that will talk about the kind of things that need to be disclosed for the possible buyer. First thing that we need will be the legal name of the owners of the property or those on the deed. And secondly would be the length of the listing, which typically would go for 6 months. Now, the most important part of the agreement here is the price we're going to ask for the listing, and then also what terms you might want, like in the way of cash or maybe taking back paper. And the way we determine that price is to do a comparative market analysis that I show here briefly, and we will go through that in detail. I gave you a copy previously, and I'll show you how you arrived at the number. Next item on the checklist is the amount of the compensation paid to the listing broker. We ask 5% of the sales price, and of that, we typically pay the buyer's broker 2.5%. Okay, look, this protection provision is usually for 120 days, and it's kind of a crappy thing, but it's there to protect the listing broker from our clients contacting people that we brought to look at the house during the period of the listing to prevent you from contacting them and getting selling them the property without paying compensation to the broker. This section on fixtures is very comprehensive in listing the items that are normally included with a home. The last statement there, along with the blank lines, gives you a place to list items that are not included with the house, which might include maybe a fixture or a piece of furniture you have in there or an appliance that you don't want to go with the house or something in the yard, but that's what that's for. And then the next line below that is where you list additional property that would be included in the sale. Would be something like maybe a ride-on mower if they got a 1 acre of grass. And then below that is an area where you can designate leased items like perhaps solar panels or a leased propane tank that would not go with the listing and the property of the house. This last document here is the owner's property disclosure, which is not a part of the listing agreement, but a separate document that is required to be filled out. And nobody likes to do it, but you need to go through and honestly look at every category in this list and identify things that you know are not right with that item. And these disclosures are important because if you don't disclose something and they find out about it later, it could have significant repercussions on you. So I would encourage you to be honest with what you fill out in this document. And then at the end, you do have to sign it, and it becomes a real significant part of the agreement. Now that we're on the subject of home disclosures, I think it might be a good idea to consider hiring a home inspection service to come in and do a full inspection on your home and give you a list of things that possibly the buyer's home inspector would find. And if there's anything significant, you can have it repaired and then have your inspector certify that it is repaired, give you a report, and you can put that in the listing documents. And that will preclude the buyer from having the opportunity to possibly try to take a second swipe at the price to lower the price when they claim they have to make these repairs. So good food for thought, and let's see if that is something you might want to consider. The next item on our checklist is the home preparation checklist, which will go through item by item of the things you need to do to prepare your home for viewing and for sale. Okay, now we're going to take a few minutes to go through the list of items you need to do to prepare your house for sale. Remember, this is sort of like a retail store, maybe selling jewelry. And when people come into that house, they want to look at it and envision themselves in that house. And the first way you do that is to clean and then clean some more. That house needs to be spotless. Not only on the inside, but also look out around the grounds and the driveway. Get rid of all the broken lawn furniture, stains in the driveway, and anything else that would mar the perfect appearance of that house. Second on the list here is to declutter. And we all seem to accumulate things over the years, so we got to get rid of that stuff. Wants to look clean and organized when they come in, so you might even need to rent a storage bin or storage mini storage area to remove your clutter from the house. Important next item is to eliminate smells. If you've had a cat in particular, or if you're a smoker or had dogs or any kind of animals, it would be important to get rid of the smells in there. You're going to hire a professional person to do that. Might have to change carpets if you've had cats that have been going to it for a while. But there's nothing more negative than walking into a house and getting hit with a bad smell. If things are really torn up in the house, you might want to look at it objectively and decide you might need to repaint. There are different preferences. Most people probably don't like to see really dark colors here and there. I mean, you might have that for your own preference, but people who are looking at it might want to be more interested in a neutral color. So you might think about that. And then you want to depersonalize the home, take off all your diplomas and all your personal pictures and anything that would show that's your home, because you want them to visualize it as being their own home. And then finally, you might think about staging your home. If you're going to be moving out and the home would be vacant, it might be better to stage it, put some furniture in there, maybe not in all the rooms, but maybe the living areas, so that you can have your house completely ready, so that when that new potential buyer walks in, they're impressed and they can visualize themselves living there. The next thing on our list is to prepare a comparative market analysis, a CMA. We talked about this right at the beginning when we were trying to determine the price of the property, but we'll get into a little more detail here of the CMA, where we really look closely at the comps in the neighborhood and also have a discussion about the status of the market. Are we in a buyer's market or seller's market? And what strategy we should use for selecting the price. If we're in a seller's market, then maybe we can be pretty aggressive in the pricing. If it's a buyer's market, you want to be careful you don't overprice the property and then have to chase the market down when you can't sell it when you want to. And particularly if you're in a hurry or have a deadline and you want to get out of the house to meet some other deadline, then overpricing can really be devastating to the schedule of closing. Now it's a time to start marketing. We will schedule a professional photographer to come into your home, take pictures around the inside, take pictures around the outside. And if we decide to, we can get a drone and get aerial photos of the house and even do a 360 walkthrough narrated by myself. Or we can also do one of those 360 setups where you could post on the internet with a 360-degree camera, and people can walk in and do their own virtual walkthrough of your house. So that's a decision we will make depending on where we think we are in relation to the rest of the market. Moving on now, the next thing we do is get this property listed in the multiple listing service. This is where everything we've done up to now comes together, where we post the photos, we make sure the house is clean, and we prepare a blurb on the description of the house. And that's something that I will prepare, and then we'll have you take a look at it, maybe get AI like Chat GPT to do some input. And then when we're all set and done with it, we will have this thing listed in the MLS, and we'll sit back and start seeing what we get the way of interest in the property. One big decision you need to make is whether you want to do an open house or not. The open houses are usually done, right along with the listing. We'll get them scheduled. There's a brokers open that are done on Thursdays and organized by the Bitterroot Board of Realtors, and they do a tour of how many realtors want to go along with it. And then also you can do an open house on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and that'll give a good indication of what sort of interest there is in your house, and that will help in determining if we made the right price. Of course, the last stage in this process is getting into escrow. If it's a cash deal, things should go relatively quickly and be relatively painless. If you're dealing with a bank, then you've got to deal with the contingencies that a bank has in regards to how much paperwork they have, how many people are ahead of you in their queue, how busy is the appraiser, and maybe you even have documents you have to get together to close the deal. And sometimes deals don't close. Something could come up at the last minute that could cause the deal to crash. That's not been unheard of. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, the timing of all of this can be really short, depending on if you're in a buyer's or a seller's market. In a seller's market, you could be sitting there collecting multiple offers, watching your price get bid up. Could be a great thing. If it's a buyer's market, you got to be real careful that you don't overprice your house, chase the market down, and end up being on the market for a long, long time until you can actually get an accepted deal. So anyway, I look forward to working with you. I hope this has been a quick summary of what to expect as we go through the process. I'll be working with you as we go through it. These documents will have already been in your hands, and we'll have looked them over already. And I'm just hoping this is a summary to sort of get you mentally prepared to start down this process of getting your house sold. So thanks for listening, and I look forward to working with you.